Thank you, Congressman Kennedy, and good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle McConkie. I am the director of the Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, and we are happy to be here today. So SITLA manages over 3.2 million acres of surface and mineral estate, an additional 1.5 million of severed mineral estate throughout the state of Utah. And this is land that was granted out statehood by the federal government for the specific purpose of making money for certain special institutions, primarily the K-12 public school system. And we make this money by partnering with private industry. And it's really a great example of how private and public partnerships can work together. We're really happy, as I said, to be here in the basin. The basin is incredibly important to what we do. I'm going to throw out just a few numbers. Last year, SITLA made over $142 million in revenue. 42 million of that was oil and gas royalty payments. And of that, 3/4 of that was produced in the basin. So again, that just tells you how important this area is to the work that we do. For those who operate in trust lands or support those operations, thank you. We're so happy to work with so many of you. In addition to the economic development that what you're doing brings to the state and to the area, you are also helping Utah's public schools. So a lot of times people ask what happens to this money, and I'm going to give a quick primer on that, and then I'm actually going to turn some time over to my colleagues to talk about some different opportunities that we have on trust lands. But the money that is made is invested by a separate agency, and the returns, a portion of those returns are then returned to public schools. And how these funds are used are determined by school community councils, which are in every school throughout the state. And these are made up of parents and administrators who decide what are the most pressing academic needs for that particular school. So it is really the ultimate in local control. Parents and administrators for that school determine how the money is spent. I have some money, we do give out money, but I also have some numbers I'm going to tell you about this last year. We distributed about $111 million just over in funding to schools. Duchesne County received over $1 million. Daggett County School District got a little over $262,000. Of course, a smaller school district, they did get less there, but still a significant amount. And Uintah County School District received over $1.2 million. Again, that can be determined, how those are used is determined by individual schools and their community councils. We're always doing a lot of different things on trust land. We do real estate development. Of course, energy development is huge, one of the largest money makers for us, as well as minerals, grazing, anything you can do on land that makes money, we probably are doing it. And if we haven't thought about it, come talk to us and let's talk about it. We are a much easier organization to work with than the federal government. Since it's state land, we do not have NEPA requirements. We don't have those same regulatory requirements, and we want to work with local industry. And so please, we have a booth in the back, and we'd love to talk to anyone who has some ideas or some ways they would like to work with us. With that, I'm going to turn it over to first Tyler Wiseman and then Chance Rinderknecht, who are both geoscientists with our organization and lease managers, and they're going to talk about some exciting opportunities that we have on trust lands. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tyler Wiseman. I'm a licensed professional geologist with the state of Utah and a mineral lease manager for trust lands. And I'm going to give us a tour of Utah as it relates to energy and mineral projects on trust lands. If I can get this to move forward. There we go. All right, so starting out with oil and gas. So currently we have 892 total active oil and gas leases. There's just under 600 producing or held by unit leases, 231 primary term leases, and over 500,000 total acres leased throughout the state, primarily in the Uintah Basin, some down in the Paradox Basin, and also the Drunkard's Wash on the Wasatch Plateau. Something that's very significant is that the total revenue since 2005 is over $1.5 billion. So on behalf of the beneficiaries, I just want to say thank you. And then another important aspect is that we have a pretty strong footprint in the emerging Mancos oil play. kind of on the edge near the Colorado state line. So we're excited about that. The next is coal and solid hydrocarbons. So again, we have 6 active coal leases on trust lands in the Wasatch Plateau and Book Cliffs coal fields. We did pick up some good coal tracts in the recent Dingle exchange with the federal government. We have 13 active bituminous asphaltic sands leases on trust lands, which reside in the Sunnyside, the PR Spring, and the Asphalt Ridge tar sand deposits. And those utilize both surface mining and in situ recovery methods. We do have 11 active gilsonite leases on trust lands and 22 active oil shale leases on trust lands. Moving through to metalliferous minerals. So these are the base and precious minerals. These are kind of all over the state, but primarily they're concentrated within mineral belts in the West Desert. So kind of north to south, there's Park City and Gold Hill Mineral Trend. There's the Tinnick Deep Creek, Marysville, Pioche, and then the Iron Axis down in Washington County and Iron County. So we have 282 active metalliferous mineral leases on trust lands. We're seeing a major explosion of exploration for precious and base metals, driven by the commodity price. So tariffs and the wars are really driving that. A lot of that's being explored for on trust lands as well. We're seeing interest in critical minerals and fissionable minerals. So uranium is a major point of interest right now down in like southeastern Utah. And then the state of Utah is a nuclear energy hub. I put this on here because we have the resource base. We have, for decades, for about 100 years, we've been known as like a major uranium. We host major uranium deposits. We have the only active conventional uranium mill at the Energy Fuels White Mesa mill down in San Juan County, and we have an inactive mill called the Shooter Canyon in Garfield County. Both of those actually are located on trust lands minerals. And then also the Governor Cox is in support of nuclear power, and so are we. I put on here the critical mineral summary, the updated one as of August of this year, and I just want to highlight a few. So Spore Mountain is located in Juab County, and Materion operates the only beryllium mine in the U.S., and that is located on trust lands. As far as copper is concerned, copper is produced all over the state, as we know. But one specific one in Lisbon Valley is a sedimentary copper, which is located on trust lands. Intrepid Potash is dominating the potash industry in Utah with their 2 producing sites in Wendover and in Cane Creek down in the Paradox. And then we recently just did a lease for gallium and germanium down in Washington County, really close to the Arizona line. And then move into potash and mineral salts. So we have 57 potash and mineral salts leases on trust lands. That's primarily throughout the Paradox, and then we have a few in the Bonneville Basin area in the West Desert. Like I just mentioned, so Intrepid, they're dominating the industry. We're seeing a large increase in exploration for battery-related minerals, specifically lithium in these deep sedimentary brines, particularly in the Paradox Basin, in the Paradox Formation, and then below that in the Mississippi and Leadville limestone. We do have a bunch of, they're more exploration projects right now, but we're seeing them trying to utilize these in situ recovery methods to produce not only the potash, but also the other mineral salts such as lithium within those brines. And last but not least is our renewable energy portfolio, which is smaller than our other energy portfolio and minerals, but So we have 72 active renewable energy leases on trust lands, over 100,000 total acres leased. Specifically, geothermal is really exciting for us. We have a lot of projects going on. So there's the University of Utah has the Forge project that's located on trust lands, and the Furvo Cape Station is also located on trust lands, and they're both in Beaver County. Also, we do have the thermo plant that's operated by CERC that is located on trust lands as well down in Beaver County. Our IPP block is really filling up fast. So that's on the northern edge of Millard County. And that's really, so it's interesting geologically because there's a salt dome that's down there. About a mile down, you drill down a mile, and then you're in a mile of just thick halite salt. And that's been known, and we actually acquired that land for a position over top of that salt back in the 90s. And since then, we've seen Sawtooth Caverns come in with their NGL storage, and then more recently we have ACES and the Chevron H2 Energy Project, where they use the salt dome as so hydrogen storage. And then we have a major solar project on IPP as well. And with that, I believe Chance is up. Yeah, hit this.
Okay, cool. I really enjoy this conference. I love being here. This is home for me, but I love this conference. You know, if we had a mantra or a slogan in the Uinta Basin, we don't, but if we did, I would want it to be something along the lines of, if there's a problem, we'll find a way, we'll fix it, or we'll figure it out. Because in the Uinta Basin, there are a lot of issues that we deal with that others don't have to deal with. One of the things that I love about the Uinta Basin is how we think outside the box, right? So there is a misconception of oil and gas industry in the Uinta Basin, where we're just kind of, you know, drilling to the Green River and we're producing, or we're farming, quote unquote, farming for oil. And nothing could be further from the truth. There's so many nuances in each of these different producing zones. In fact, we have lessees or operators that are looking deeper, that are looking at the different heterogeneities in these different producing zones, and they are reviving old fields or brown fields, and they are finding new emerging plays, as Tyler alluded to. So there's a lot of wildcatting and exploration that's going on, and it's exciting for us. Dr. Lyman's going to talk a little bit about ozone and the issues that we have dealt with the EPA and different things. Not very many oil and gas industries have to deal with that, but it's interesting and it's amazing how more production, which we've seen more production than we ever have, more production doesn't necessarily mean that there's more emissions. And again, that's because we're leaning into technology, and we're doing a lot, and our lessees and operators, they're doing a lot to reduce those emissions, right? And then midstream and markets. How many times have we heard about the bottleneck that is the Uinta Basin? Getting our product out to market is difficult. But again, there's been operators that have thought outside the box. We've worked with government officials and different things to help with infrastructure, you know, widen highways and everything so we can get our product out. There's midstream companies that are building pipelines so we can get our product, which is a premium product, out of the basin, right? So oil and gas operators, we know how to solve problems. We've got the people in place to solve lots of different problems. 10 years ago, there's no way that I can't even imagine drilling a 3-mile lateral, but here we are, right? We're going in, we're drilling 3-mile laterals into the source rock, right? Or going deeper and dealing with tremendous pressures. 10 years ago, probably wouldn't be able to do that, but now we can deal with tremendous pressure. One of the problems that I'm going to be talking a lot about today, which has the potential to not be a problem, but has tremendous potential to be an economic value or monetized, is water. So just for a second, I want you to think about the millions of dollars that have been spent on water disposal, millions of dollars in disposal wells, millions of dollars in ponds or holding ponds, right? So I want to zoom out a little bit. There are our neighbors here in Utah, or we work with them. Tyler alluded to them. there are operators that are utilizing that water because it's hot. It's hot water, right? And they turn a turbine. So as you can imagine, I'm going to be speaking of geothermal energy. So Tyler talked about the Forge project. Tyler talked about Fervo. There's a lot of really cool things that are going on in Utah for geothermal. Geothermal systems, they're complicated, but they're really not complicated, right? It's hot water turns a turbine, right? We produce the hot water, goes into a medium, vaporizes, and it turns a turbine. It's really not that complicated. So one of the things that has kind of plagued the geothermal industry is capital. It takes a lot of capital. But that's not something that the Uinta Basin or oil and gas operators are not used to, right? It takes a lot of money to drill wells. One of the things that I think is the great successes in geothermal is Fervo. When you look at their first well that they drilled, it took them 60 days. Their 20th well took them 20 days. And I'm going to be very bullish on that, because the reason that they were able to do that and the reason that they were able to be sufficient is because they borrowed the technology from the oil and gas industry. They didn't just borrow the technology from the oil and gas industry. They hired people from the oil and gas industry. They hired the drilling engineers. They hired the reservoir engineers. They hired the geologists, right? They hired the permitting managers. So these geothermal companies are geothermal companies, but they really are an oil and gas company that's producing water. And again, how much water do we produce in the Uinta Basin, right? So the reason that it works in Milford, the reason that it works in Beaver County is because what's happening in the Uinta Basin. And if you look at that map, I do want to focus, there's a few black dots right there, right? Those black dots are wells with elevated temperatures, elevated heat flow, okay? So these have elevated heat flow, and these are just oil and gas wells. We just kind of stumbled upon hot water, right? So this isn't even exploring for hot water. So this is an enthalpy equation. There's a lot of different equations for enthalpy. This isn't a technical conversation, but a lot of people come up to me and they ask, well, there's not the temperatures, right? Well, the temperature is just one aspect of this equation. The other aspect is the water itself, fluid, how much fluid you're able to pass, right? So if you don't have as much fluid, you need hotter temperatures. It would be great to have both, right? But if you don't have quite the hot temperatures, you still have good temperatures, but you have a lot of water, you can still run that turbine, right? And that's another thing. These binary geothermal power plants are becoming so much more efficient. It doesn't take 400-degree temperature to run these turbines, okay? So just really quick, there's been 127 wells. This is a study done by the UGS back in 2015, I believe. And there was 127 wells with elevated temperatures. And again, not exploring for geothermal. So the Uinta Basin it's a conductive basin. It's a deep sedimentary basin. There's a lot of water and there's high temperatures. So the recipe is there. There's another study done by NREL, or the National Renewable Energy Lab, in 2012, and they looked at all the deep sedimentary basins, not all of them, but the major deep sedimentary basins in the United States. The Uinta Basin was number 3 with potential. You can see these different graphs. About 120 degrees C is about where it starts to get economic, where you can turn those turbines and really produce. So as you can see here, there is a lot of potential in the Uinta Basin for geothermal. And if there's one thing that you hear from me, and again, I want to be very bullish on this, is that there is nobody that is primed or nobody that is set up for success and to lean into geothermal energy more than the people that are in this room, because you have the geoscientists, and I promise you, we're a pretty curious bunch. I promise if you ask your geoscientists to do exploration for geothermal, their eyes are going to light up. Right? So you have the geoscientists, you have the engineers, you have the permitting teams in place. That is something that is going to allow you to move really, really quick and be very efficient, which is the name of the game when it comes to geothermal. So I would hope that I would start getting emails and I would start getting contacted about interest in geothermal potential in the Uinta Basin, because I think the recipe's there. Thanks.